Yesterday, Sayadaw spoke about Samma-Dhitti, seeing correctly, or right view. This is an important quality for everyone, in every way. For example, if one is taking a trip and one doesn't see correctly, then one will wind up in a bad situation. So for those who want good results in their life, Samma-Dhitti, seeing correctly, is very important. If one knows the correct path and the crooked path, the straight, if one knows which path is straight and which path is not, then one knows the danger of the path that is not straight, and one can avoid that path. If one has to go along the crooked path for some reason, unavoidably, then one is able to protect oneself. One can take things that might protect one on the way, so to speak. And also one can anticipate the problems that may occur and take preventive measures. So one who knows one's own path takes the right path to the right destination and therefore reaches the safe destination. And especially in practicing the 3 trainings for uplifting our lives, seeing correctly, or Samma-Dhitti, is very important. And now, in the practice, now the yogis here have momentum in their practice. And one is likely to be pleased when hearing about the Dhamma in terms of theory and practice, and seeing that one's own experience agrees with what one hears in the Dhamma talks. Yesterday, Sayadaw mentioned 6 types of seeing correctly, Samma-Dhitti. And the first one is very important for all of us, for every human being. And the second one also is very important, because jhana is present in the practice. Vitakka, accurate aiming; vichara, the quality of rubbing against the object; piti, joy; sukha, happiness; ekaggata, or collectedness of mind. These are all present in our practice. And so the second Samma-Dhitti, jhana Samma-Dhitti, is important for us. And continuing from the point of developing the jhanic factors, there's Vipassana Samma-Dhitti, and this is the knowledge that gradually matures, and it's the nearest cause for a realization of the path. So, in developing, so it's this third type of seeing correctly, Vipassana Samma-Dhitti. The knowledge that is contained in Vipassana knowledge is very important. And when one develops Vipassana Samma-Dhitti, causing it to arise and then gradually developing it until it becomes mature, there's no need to work to create Mega Samma-Dhitti, the correct seeing of the path. And because it will arise naturally due to the maturity of Vipassana Samma-Dhitti. And when Mega Samma-Dhitti arises, then Phala Samma-Dhitti, the right view that is contained in the moment of fruition, arises automatically. And following that, reviewing knowledge, Paccavekkhana Samma-Dhitti, the right view that looks back at what one has experienced. This also automatically occurs following path and fruition. So what is important are these first three types of seeing correctly. And the last three, we have no need to create them or bring them about. This is something that we must understand. Among the 6 types of Samma-Dhitti, or seeing correctly, the last one relates to Dhamma that one has experienced. It's when one turns around and, so to speak, and reflects on it. When we do the practice, what we're trying to do is reach a safe place where we are out of the danger of the enemy. We're free of the enemy. So we're trying to get free. We're trying to run to a safe place when we practice. And this enemy that we are trying to get free of is the extreme lobha, dosa, and moha, greed, hatred, and delusion, which cause us to do wrong. Those are our biggest enemy. So we make the determination not to transgress physically and verbally, and one runs from the enemy with this determination. To the extent one can avoid transgression, then one's physical, verbal, and mental behaviors are clean, lovable, and peaceful. One doesn't do anything wrong, and thus other people, other beings aren't harmed by us. So this is very good. If one transgresses by way of body or speech, then not only do others suffer, but we also suffer. So we have to know that it is good to avoid committing transgression, committing transgressive acts. And with faith in this, we take the minimum of the 5 precepts and we keep them so that we don't harm others and so that others are not harmed. Only if there is the correct seeing of kama as our own property, kama sakata samma-dhitti, does one do this, does one undertake sila. If there's no understanding of kama as our own property, then one will break morality as one wants. And one will commit misdeeds and harm others and thus put oneself in danger. So this kama sakata dhitti is what we need to have at the beginning, but this is just a base. We need another level of training. So to practice as we do now, we need to observe every arising object, applying effort and accurate aim, every arising seeing, every arising hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. At every moment an object arises, we have to apply effort to observe the object. And mindfulness occurs due to the effort. And when sati sticks to the object, the mind becomes collected. And then we have protection from laziness and other kilesas. Effort dispels laziness. So laziness has no chance to arise in our mind. And with sati, the mind is protected. It's blockaded against kilesas. And with the collectedness of samadhi, the mind doesn't move at all due to greed or anger or delusion, raga, dosa, and moha. So the mind is calm. We have to note every second in order for this to happen. But when we do, the mind becomes gentle. And we see the result that comes from our practice. And thus, we come to have more faith. And we make more effort to develop effort, mindfulness, and concentration, virya, sati, and samadhi. Many yogis here don't understand this. They look here and there. They don't guard their eyes. When they go from one place to another, they behave just as though they're on the outside, not at a meditation center. When they sit down or stand up, bend or stretch, perform any activities, they do so in a normal way, not in a meditative way. So the respect for the practice is low. And due to not enough respect for the practice, then the care that is needed to observe the object one moment after another is not there. It's not strong enough. So there's no continuity of practice. When one has continuous application of the mind, one builds energy. When one has virya, sati, and samadhi every second, then one sees rupa and nama. One comes to see clearly the distinction between physical and mental phenomena, and so on. And with the development of knowledge, beginning with seeing nama and rupa, one is cutting off the seeds of the kilesas. So the kilesas have to be fought off on 3 levels. 1, we have to avoid the transgressive acts. And 2, we have to use effort, sati, and samadhi, virya, sati, samadhi, to protect the mind, to make it clean. And from there, we have to make effort to develop knowledge so the latent kilesas, the seeds of the kilesas, can be pulled out. One moment of noting is nothing much at all. It's not very much, but that one moment has to be cherished. Beings have 2 types of enemies. Okay, what is an enemy? An enemy is something which gives us trouble and which works against us. So there are 2 kinds. One is internal enemies, and the second is external. So the internal enemy that we face is lobha, dosa, and moha, which have been following us throughout lifetimes. These are the nearest and most dangerous enemy that we have. External enemies are in the form of people or animals or extreme weather. These external enemies are far away. We don't meet them very often in life. So they're not that frightening. What is frightening are the internal enemies. Greed, hatred, and delusion, and the misdeeds that occur together with them, the ducharitas. And one falls subject to these. One hates, one craves, and one doesn't know that these are happening in one. So the practice is to avoid, repel, and put an end to the enemy. We have to be quick in order to escape being caught by the enemies. So just like we have to run quickly when we have an enemy on our tail, so too, when we're noting objects, we have to note quickly to escape the kilesas that will arise if we are too slow. And when Vipassana knowledge starts to develop, one's noting becomes quite quick. One's noting becomes exact, accurate. So, and then when Vipassana knowledge is mature, one can easily get to the safe place away from the enemy. One realizes path knowledge, mega Samma-Dhitti, and phala Samma-Dhitti, fruition knowledge. And then, last of all, just like the person who's finally gotten out of the reach of the enemy and is in a safe place, might turn around and look to see the enemy that they've overcome. So too, in practice, after we've realized path and fruition, the mind turns around and has a look to see what enemy was overcome. If you haven't yet experienced this in your practice, just make a note of it. So, among the 6 types of Samma-Dhitti, seeing correctly, with Kamma-Sakata Samma-Dhitti, the right understanding of Kamma as our property, we apply the practice. We apply effort and accurate aim so that the mind becomes collected onto the object. And this is how we escape the enemy of the kilesas. In every noting, we're taking a step away from them. And later, one becomes fast in one's noting, and the enemy can't keep up. So Sayadaw asks, please respect the practice. Move about, do your actions respectfully, work continuously, work with care to establish continuity. It's important that as we run away from the enemy, we don't start and stop. We need to go one step after another quickly in order to escape the enemy. So one does this by making one's notings connected. Sayadaw urges the yogis to listen to what he is saying. And those who listen respectfully to this and take it to heart and apply themselves, for them it will not take a month to realize special things. It will take just a matter of days to develop special knowledge. Sayadaw asked the meditation teachers, and what he heard is that there are not very many yogis who speak enthusiastically about their practice. So this means that they may have nothing special to report. So if one has practiced for a month but has nothing special, then it's important to apply oneself. If one pays attention, if one applies effort, mindfulness, effort and accurate aim every second of the time, in just a matter of days one will see a distinct difference. Among the 6 types of Samma-Dhitti, we're seeing correctly, which Sayadaw explained. In terms of the practice, the first, Kamma-Sakata Samma-Dhitti, and the third, Vipassana Samma-Dhitti, are the most important. Based on the understanding that when we do bad things, it brings bad results, and when we do good things, it brings good results. Based on this understanding called Kamma-Sakata Samma-Dhitti, we practice to develop Vipassana Samma-Dhitti, Vipassana knowledge. So in practice, we need to know the method. And this is just to note at every arising, focusing on one's body. Note at every seeing, every hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, every thinking, every rising, falling, bending, stretching, opening and closing the eyes. But at the start, one can't catch all of these objects. So we start with simple objects. In sitting, we start with the rising and the falling. And when we observe them, we make a label with our mind, rising or falling. Just like when we read aloud. And in walking, the main objects, we observe our lifting, moving and placing of the foot. And then other actions we also have to be aware of. And large actions that we may be aware of are bending and stretching and so on. So our meditation has 3 parts. Noting while sitting, noting while walking, and noting while doing everything else. And if these 3 sections are connected one with the other, if we can develop mindfulness in each one of these sections, then Vipassana Samma-Dhitti occurs. So where should we go to hear about the method of practice? Well, we need to approach a good spiritual friend, a Kalyana Metta, to get the method. We need to listen carefully and remember what we've heard so that we can apply it. And we need to listen daily so that we can stay on track with practice. This listening to the method is called Paṇḍitā, hearing about the method of the correct way to improve oneself from the Buddha and other wise beings. Hearing about the practice, our faith awakens. And having faith in the practice, we want to get the results. We have some chanda or desire to get the results of the practice. And this desire to get the results eventually makes us brave enough to give up the pleasures that we have in the world and come to a center like this, where we can apply the practice, putting our attention on our own being and observing every arising object. So because of these 2 factors, Paṇḍitā, and then being able to put one's attention on the body and observe every arising object, Vipassana knowledge arises in stages. And at the end of the development of Vipassana knowledge, one gains Mega Samma-Dhitti. Among these 2 points that Sayadaw has just mentioned, Paṇḍitā and the Yoniso Manasikara, Sayadaw is not just making this up. It's in the text. The Buddha said in the suttas, and what he said is, Ime due bhikkhave paccaya sammaditya upadaya. That means, O monks, there are 2 causes for seeing correctly how mental and physical phenomena are related by cause and effect. And from here, developing Vipassana knowledge in stages to reach Mega Samma-Dhitti, the correct view of the path. There are 2 causes for these types of Samma-Dhitti, right view, to arise. The Buddha asked, what are they? Katame dve. Who he answered, Parato cha goso, That means the first necessary factor for Samma-Dhitti to arise is hearing the correct method of practice from a good spiritual friend, a Kalyana Metta. And the second is Yoniso Manasikara. That means that knowing the method of practice, one has to walk straight along the path. This is the quality of Yoniso Manasikara, the ability to walk straight along the path. With this, Vipassana Samma-Dhitti arises. It is developed to maturity, and so it develops until maturity, and then path arises. So now the yogis have heard the correct method, and they are practicing it. And in this practice, one has to work respectfully in order to do the practice. One has the causes for developing the Vipassana Samma-Dhitti and Mega Samma-Dhitti. The two causes, one has these causes already. The hearing about the practice and walking the path in a straight way. So this is something to be happy about. In the Pali that Sayadaw spoke, Dvaipacchaya, this word, what is meant is to create what was not there before, to develop that, to enlarge it, increase it, and bring it to maturity. So, what are the causes for this to happen? The Buddha used the word paccaya. There are two causes for Samma-Dhitti to arise. So he used the word paccaya to mean cause, and that is explained as upakara. That means that something comes close and gives benefit. So one knows the method. That means that knowing the method, putting it into practice, one will get firm results. So one has to avoid trouble, and one has to get to safety from the internal enemy. So the first step of that is to learn the method. If you don't know the method true, then study, practice, listen till you do. So there's two ways in which we learn about things. We may learn about we may learn about the practice through hearing, and also through discussion when we meet with the teacher. And knowing the path, one has to walk along it in a straightforward manner. Just taking one step at a time, making one noting at a time. So every second of the time, we need to be taking a step to reach the safe place, free of the enemy. And this walking according to the path, which has been pointed out, walking along this path, is what is meant by Yoniso Manasikara. Yoniso, which means is usually translated as wisely, is explained as patato, which means according to the path pointed out. So when one walks along the path, it's as though the path pulls us along. So these two factors of knowing the path and Yoniso Manasikara are causes. A cause is something that creates something initially and then continues to give benefit to what was started, making it better, improving it. So if the yogis listen to the teacher, Sayadaw urges the yogis to listen to the teachers that are instructing you and to follow along the path and go quickly to escape the enemy. This is your responsibility. And if you do so, you will be able to develop the types of Samma-Dhitti, Vipassana Samma-Dhitti and Mega Samma-Dhitti. So Sayadaw urges you to be able to do so. He makes the wish that you will be able to follow the path quickly. That's all for today. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.